Welcome, everybody. Let's get started. And I'm going to start with an interesting story, at least it's interesting to me. In November, I had the opportunity to go up to visit my folks. And I hadn't been anywhere since the pandemic started. So I was trying to stay buckled down and not going anywhere and being safe and being courteous to everybody else. But I said, I've got to go up and see my folks. My folks are, gosh, I don't even know, 82 and 81. And I said, I got to go up and see them, and I'll probably see if I can see some clients. And so I drove up. It's an 8-hour drive from Nashville to Chicago, where my folks are. And everything was fine. And I was planning on seeing a few clients. And that changed after the first day, because when I arrived in Chicago, it was a Monday. And it was interesting because my brothers and sisters weren't there. My brother and sister. And so usually I get up there and there's a whole house full of people and there's a lot of commotion, a lot going on, but it wasn't this time. And so it was just me and my folks. And I haven't had that experience in probably 45 years. And so I mention all this because during that time and during that week, I was only supposed to be there a couple of days. My dad had some minor back surgery, so I ended up staying a little bit longer. But during that time, it was just probably one of the nicest bonding moments that I've had with my folks in probably 45 years. We did the normal stuff. I pulled in and I said, Mom and Dad, where is everybody? Where's Matt and Emily? Why aren't they raking and blowing these leaves, right? And so we blew leaves and raked leaves. And of course, my brother and sister do help out, but there was a big downpour of leaves. And so then we were just doing different tasks. And then my mom said, John, will you help me flip the mattress? I said, what? Yeah, I want to flip the mattress. And I'm like, okay, Mom, you sure you don't want a new mattress? No, let's just flip the mattress and we can use this one. I'm like, okay. But it's got a little divot, like mine. It's got I picked up some habits, I guess, from my folks. So we hang on to stuff. If it's not totally worn out, we're not throwing it out. So we flipped the mattress, and she washed the sheets, and we had a conversation about the mattress pad. I said, Mom, you got to wash the mattress pad. She said, we don't really wash the mattress pad. Do you wash the mattress pad? I said, yes, Mom, you have to wash. So she started taking a poll of all of her friends if they wash the mattress pad or not. And then about an hour later, she calls me up, and I was downstairs in the basement. She says, Johnny, will you come, help me make the bed? And I said, Mom, I'll make the bed for you. She goes, no. Let's do it together. I said, Mom, I don't mind doing it. She goes, no, then you'll have to walk around the bed by yourself. And I said, well, that's kind of nice. So here I am with my 81-year-old mother making her bed. And again, the first time in 45 years. So I mention this because, again, we had just a lovely time, and it was a great visit, and there was no commotion. Nobody came over. I did go see my brother and sister, but we sat outside and we did the social distance thing. My dad did have surgery. Everything went well. And I ended up staying a few more days because I called down to my wife and I said, Dana, it'd probably be good if I stayed. She said, yes, stay. So I stayed. And then she asked me, she goes, when was the last time your mom was in her house by herself overnight? I said, I don't know. So I asked her, and she said, it's probably been 50 years. And it's only happened twice that my dad was not there. So my dad was a teacher. My mom worked part-time in the hospital. Great people, but always together. So they were not used to being apart. So I said, I'll stay. And so I stayed until Sunday. And again, I think I've been withholding the punchline from you, but the reason I did that and what I experienced from that and the joy that I felt, it was so nice that, the business is running well. I've got Joel here. Joel Van Belkom is our newest associate. So welcome aboard, Joel. He was here kind of manning the fort. Karen's taking care of stuff. And I didn't have to worry. And I said, that is the feeling that I want for all of you. I want you folks to be able to say, if I want to stay a little bit longer on vacation, I can stay a little bit longer on vacation. If I want to give an extra $50 to a charity, I can give an extra $50 to a charity. If I want to go down and see my kids or do any of the things that I want to do on my terms, that's what I want you to experience. And so that's what Joel and I do, is we help people create the life that they want to live, not the life that we want to live, but the life that you want to live. So that is our goal for you. And we're going to spend probably the next 30 minutes or so. It might be 45. You're going to listen to Joel talk a little bit. You're listening to me talk a little bit. And we're just going to go through some concepts and ideas that can help you get to a point where retirement is the retirement that you want it to be. So with that, let's get started. There is a chat feature. Last time I probably wasn't very good at working it. So Joel, if you see any chat comments there or something pop up, please let me know.
You betcha.
And did the Navin Group pop up there? We all good?
We're looking good.
All right, let's get started. Let's see if we can get everybody retired here on the way they want to retire.
It's just that easy.
We got to take a few steps, but it is that easy if you take the right steps, but you got to take a few steps. And we're going to point out 3 things that you have to be aware of and make sure that you pay attention to get you through and to that retirement point. And Joel, you kind of mentioned a good thing. It isn't that easy. It does take some time. It does take some effort, but it is something you can accomplish and it's something you can do. And we want to make it so it doesn't seem so daunting. So it's not this big giant thing up there where there's confusion, there's mystery. We don't know if we're going to have enough money, if I'm going to live long, how long am I going to live, if my money's going to last. All these things we're going to cover, but we'll do them in steps, so it will not be overwhelming. With that, we're going to see if we can de-risk your retirement. So 3 keys to help you de-risk your retirement. Here is some disclosures. Basically, it just says that we're going to give you a lot of information this evening, but please don't act on anything we say tonight without setting up a time to come see us. At the end, there will be an opportunity to set up a time to talk to us for about 15 minutes. And this is what we normally do is just do a 15-minute phone call to learn a little bit more about you and what's important to you and see if it's a good fit. And I'll share the ideas and how you can do that at the end of our presentation. But if your phone is nearby, one of the easiest things you can do, I'm going to let you take a picture of a little box here in the future, and it'll take you right to a place where you can sign up for a 15-minute call. So with that, here we go. 3 areas of risk. Not having enough income. The risk of the market in our current economy. Let me pause there for a second. We have been on about a 10 or 12-year bull market. So I would say the market still does look good now. So I'm just pausing for a quick second. But we're going to want to make sure that we don't have too much money in the stock market and think that this is going to last forever, because it's not. And it was kind of refreshing today to see a new president, to see some new birth. I feel a new sense of excitement coming. I feel like we're drawing near to the COVID. Hopefully that comes sooner than later, and just get out of this kind of funk that we've been in for a year. So I guess I got off on COVID and not so much the risk of the market. So I apologize. And then also the third thing is going to be the damaging impact of taxes. So, and I really think, folks, in the future, taxes are going to be more important than returns, more important than diversification, or just as important, I should say, because with all of the relief that we have coming from COVID and just what's been going on in the last year, the government's been writing checks. They're going to want that money back someday, and they're going to come back to us to look for it. So we just have to be ready and be prepared for that. I'm not opposed for anybody paying their fair share, but for everybody paying their fair share. And I'm not opposed to paying my fair share. I just don't want to pay more than we have to. All right. In the olden days, now I started out talking about my folks. I might as well keep talking about them. My dad was a teacher. I mentioned my mom worked part-time in the hospital. They had this 3-legged stool. And just like my parents, your parents didn't have to do a whole lot of retirement planning, right? Because they had a pension, they had Social Security, and they had personal savings. So they had this 3-legged stool that's going to carry them through. How many folks have a pension anymore? Not very many, right? Social Security, where are we with Social Security? They claim they're not ever going to reduce our benefit. But if you look at your statement when it comes, they have to revamp Social Security by 2034 because it's going to be out of money. So Social Security may have a crack in that leg. So really, we're down to our personal savings. Um, and it might not just be personal savings, but I mention that because I want to stress the importance of making sure that we have some assets. What do you see here? To me, it is a junk drawer. And for me, mine sits underneath the coffee pot right next to the refrigerator. I'm a bit of an overachiever, so I have two junk drawers, not just one.
I was gonna say, I think I might beat you at 3, John.
You have 3?
Yeah, not good.
Dana's trying to get me to get rid of my 2. Oh, I have a cabinet also, so I guess I have 2 drawers and a cabinet. But I'm trying to catch you, Joel. But in that junk drawer, it looks just like this, and it's a hodgepodge of just different stuff. Some of the same stuff you'll see here. I bring this picture up to share an idea that when we see people, and when people come in and we haven't been in the office and we haven't had people to the office, but we're doing everything on Zoom and learning webinars. But when we see them and we start talking with them, everybody's got a little bit of something from somewhere else. And we start asking questions, and it's like, how'd you get this mutual fund? Well, I got that from my brother-in-law recommended. Okay, great. And I said, how'd you get this stock? Well, my neighbor, recommended this stock. And I'll say, well, great. What's your neighbor do for a living? And well, he's a mechanic. Huh. Okay. So you're taking your stock advice from the mechanic. So all that to say, which sometimes isn't a bad thing, but all that to say, we've got different bits of investments, different tools, different strategies, and they all may not be working together. And they all might not be working for you, and you might be paying too many fees on some of these different things. So we want to clean out your junk drawer. One of the ways we do that, and again, you'll see this towards the end, is we do a confidential financial analysis. So we help you organize all of your stuff, all of your different tools, all of your different investments, and we start to look and see how do they work together. So if this one's going to be your growth bucket and this one's going to be your income bucket, now we want to look and see how do all of these work together and how long before your money is going to run out. So if you take us up on this offer here is to help you organize your financial life. And this is what our 15-minute phone call stems from, is where it starts. We start to look at your confidential financial analysis, which is going to, again, help you organize, but it's going to provide peace of mind. You will know exactly how long your money is going to last and when you think it's going to run out. And it's just a great tool. We use it all the time. So not only in the first meeting, we use it throughout the year when people call and say, hey, I'm thinking about buying a car. Should I finance it or should I pull the money out of the portfolio? We can plug it into some software and really get a detailed answer as to what is the best way to go. Experts talk about a 4% rule. And they say if you have a sum of money, so say you have $1 million, we should be able to average about 4% on that money. Well, Morningstar came out, and Morningstar, and I picked this one up from the USA Today. They are now saying that the 4% rule is actually closer to 2 or 3. Experts used to say, again, 4% and you're fine. Now, a lot less. So what would that equate to? If you had $1 million, you're living on 2% and or 3%. It's either $20,000 or $30,000 a year. Not very exciting, right? Not very exciting at all. This is where we have to do some planning. And I started mentioning my folks in the 3-legged stool and talking about, if we have a pension and we have Social Security, we don't have to do much planning because that would generate our income. And your folks also, when they retired, they had a pension, they had Social Security, and the interest rates were 6%. Well, now we can't get 0.1% at a CD. So we've got to do some planning, but we've also got to be a little bit conservative. But we want to get out of the 2 to 3% range because it's not very exciting if you're living on 2 or 3%. So we got to see if we can increase that number for you. With that being said, Joel, I'm going to turn this over to you. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
It is time to talk about some risk.
Talk about some risk. You know what? Maybe I still have to share that. Let me share it again, and then you just take controls. How about that?
Yeah.
All right.
John and I are getting better and better and more sophisticated and sophisticated with good old new world that we're in. So,
yeah. Well, it's a good thing we're smarter in other areas than we are with the technology.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, you're on.
All right, perfect. So thank you everybody for taking some time tonight. Second topic that I wanted to talk about is risk. And so really keeping your assets protected, even if the market drops. And if you're anything like me, when I watch the news, one of the words I keep hearing over and over is the word volatility. And that's because we live in volatile times. Whether we're talking about world affairs, domestic politics, or even people's reactions to social media posts, we're in the middle of some of the most turbulent times many of us have ever seen. But what does that really mean? It simply means that with things happening so fast, the stock market can go up and down just as quickly. And the real question, what does that mean for you? Well, one of the questions that a lot of our clients end up asking is, Joel, will a major drop in the market change the hopes and dreams that I have for retirement? And that, my friends, is a very good question. So what I wanted to talk about for just a few minutes is two things: risk tolerance and then what I call the danger zone. And to illustrate this for you all, I'll tell a quick story here about two clients of ours. We'll get to this in just a minute, but before I talk about the S&P 500, let me kind of talk a story that I think will help relate to everybody. And for our purposes, let me just use the names Tom and Eileen. Basically, Tom and Eileen, they came to one of our in-person seminars. And at the end of the seminar, Eileen was kind of nudging Tom about signing up. But truth be told, I'm not sure that he really even wanted to come and see us. But I learned a long time ago, never underestimate the power of a woman. So as predicted, 3 days later, they were sitting in my office and they had about 700,000 that was saved up for retirement. And that was spread between different 401ks, IRAs, savings accounts. We sat there, we drank some coffee, we talked about their grandchildren. They had dreams of spending time with their grandchildren after Tom retired. Then I started to ask them some more difficult questions. And I asked them, given those goals that you've given me, how much of your money are you comfortable having at risk in the market? Now, folks, Tom is 64 and Eileen is 63. And they're college sweethearts. They were fun to watch as we sat there because he would always let her, or she would always let him answer first and then correct him. So I'm very familiar with that kind of a format. Tom was hoping really to retire in the next year or so. He was the first to answer, how much would we risk? And he thought about it and he said, I don't know, maybe 10%. Eileen literally put her hand over his mouth and said, what he meant to say was $10. Yeah, this, folks, is a conservative investor. I laughed and, I asked them if they'd be comfortable with me running an analysis of their current portfolio because I really wanted to see what their existing advisor had them in. I wanted to see what they would stand to lose in the event of a big market downturn or a correction. And folks, here's why I asked. And some of you here tonight already know this as well, but taking a look at the S&P 500 index, which is the chart that we're looking at here, does anyone know what March 9th of 2019 marked? And I'll pause if anybody wants to take a crack at it in the search field. So March 9th of 2019, anyone know what that marked? No problem. No guesses, but that's okay. I will give you the answer. What it actually marked, guys, was a 10-year anniversary of one of the longest bull markets in history. So if you don't mind, let's take a look just for a couple minutes here. We all know that a bull market is when the market is on the rise. A bear market is when things are on a decline. And many of you know that a correction is a drop of 10% or more in the market following a previous upswing. But does everyone here understand that rises, falls, correction in the market are absolutely cyclical? And what I mean by that, they're not predictable down to the specific date on when they're going to occur, or else, frankly, we'd all be pretty rich. Investing would be easy. But the cycle of them happening is absolutely predictable. And in fact, if we go back almost 100 years to 1926 and look at what happened, you see a significant rise is always followed by a correction and then a period of decline. So does anyone remember kind of the dot-com years of 1995 to 2001? And for anyone that's wondering, yes, I was alive during that time. I was actually going to high school during that time, so I know a little bit about it. But the internet was exploding. It was a crazy time. All sorts of startup tech companies were erupting. The market was on a tear, and then the predictable correction happened. There was actually a 2.1 year of a downward bear market after that. And that's just an example of a cycle that is 100% predictable. In fact, we know that the average market run up or bull market lasts 4.5 years, and the average market decline or bear market lasts 1.4 years. So this is really why I was so interested in how much Tom and Eileen would be comfortable with having risk in the market, because we've now been in a rising market for over a decade. And what does that virtually guarantee us will come at some point, you might ask? And you're exactly right. If you were thinking, a correction. So when, not if that happens, I never want any of our clients sitting in retirement and being overexposed to those losses. Hopefully that makes sense and you can relate to that story. I wanted to make sure that we talked about that. So basically, Tom and Eileen, they agreed it would make sense for us to take a closer look at their current positions. We ran an analysis for them, which is part of our step-by-step process. And when they came back in the next week, we sat down, we again went over, got some coffee, shared with them some good news. Their portfolio over the past 10 years had performed really well. But I had to tell them, everybody's performed pretty well over the last 10 years. It's a decade where the S&P itself had averaged, it was over 10%. So hopefully everyone performed pretty well during that period. But I also had to share some other news to them. I had to let Tom and Eileen know that if the stock market dropped again, like it did in 2008, they would stand to lose nearly 40% of their retirement savings, simply because of how the retirement assets were currently allocated and how they were exposed to risk. That means that instead of going from 700,000 to 630,000, like Tom and Eileen said they'd be comfortable with if they had a 10% drop, they would have plummeted from 700,000 down to 420,000. When we put that into real dollars and cents, that's a $280,000 drop. And in their case, that was more than twice of what they were earning on an annual basis, combined as a couple. So as conservative investors that they thought they were, their risk tolerance was not at all matched up with their current portfolio. And can I be completely candid with everybody on this call? We see this all the time. And this is one of the biggest reasons why we want to get together with you and make sure that we know what our risk tolerance is and that we're making the right decisions. So let me bounce to the next slide here real quick, make sure this works. All right, two brothers, one more story for you. So hopefully you'll be able to relate to this as well. Let's call these two brothers Steve and Bill. Steve here on the left worked in the consulting business for most of his life. His brother Bill on the right was a small business owner. And let's say that at retirement, both of them had the exact same amount in an IRA, and they both planned on using that for income, okay? So they both had 500,000, and they both planned to use 30,000 of that IRA each year for income just to cover their living expenses. The only difference between the two brothers here is when they decided to retire. So Steve, he decided to give up consulting, let's say 1990. Bill decided to step away from his business 10 years later in 2000. They had the exact same IRA balance and the exact same financial goals for their IRA. But let's take a look at what happened in this example. If you look at the final IRA balances, you'll see that Steve on the left had over 1.2 million in his IRA. And that's after 10 years of taking 30,000 in income, while his brother Bill on the right only had $156,000 left. How can that be? The difference in their results is something that we call the sequence of returns. And in retirement, it can just be devastating. If you look at the difference in the order or the sequence of returns between the two brothers, basically Steve's first decade in retirement, it was just a great one in the market. Bill, on the other hand, was marked by a sequence of really big downward turns. And while they both started off with the same exact amount, after 10 years, Bill, he was left with less than 13% of his brother's account balance. Each of you here tonight, I know you're going to have different circumstances, but this simple hypothetical example, it really does highlight the importance of two things. First, make sure that you're not overexposed to the market and the risk that the market has too late in life. And then second, make sure, as we had said before, that you have a plan and hopefully a guaranteed plan for lifetime income so that you're never in the position of Bill in this example. You don't want to be realizing that you have a lot of life left, but not so much of an account balance. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, yeah, Joel, but what if I take my money out of the market? Won't I be missing out on gains if the market goes up? And then others here might be worried, because you feel like you're left behind. You feel like you have to take on more risk because you have to catch up. And I get that too. We even get asked all the time if there's a way to participate in some of the growth of the market, but without any of the downside market risk. And that's actually a really good question. What if there was a way to grow your money in the market if it continues to go up, but not lose your money if the market goes down? Seems too good to be true, right? But believe it or not, there is actually something that exists that does just that. There are actual opportunities like that available. But just like anything else, not every opportunity is right for every person. That's why it's important to have a custom tailored plan, not just a portfolio. In retirement, volatility, it is not our friend. And in most areas of our financial lives, we get second chances. Say you're in your 40s, you invest a little bit in some stock that doesn't perform. That's really not the end of the world, right? But you move on. Now let's suppose you're in your 50s and in your 401k, this happens again. It's the long game, they say. Hopefully next year will be better. But we have to remember, how many times do people get the chance to retire? And that's once. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we do not get a do-over on that one. I wish we had the do-over button, but does not exist. But that's why it's all the more critical to have a plan, not just to have a portfolio or a drawer full of investments and products like John had talked about a little bit earlier. It's also why it's important to have a plan, and a plan that can be adjusted over time. So here is the deal, guys. As we get closer to retirement, less and less of your money should be at risk because you don't have as much time to recover if the market drops. When you had 35 or 40 years to bounce back from losses, it really wasn't a big deal. But as you get closer, the approach, it just has to change. That's why we call the last 10 years before you plan to retire the retirement danger zone that you see here. So if you're within 10 years of retiring and you're still investing the same way that you were when you were younger, you might be at risk. And if the stock market had a major drop, it could significantly affect the options in retirement that you have. There's really just too much at stake that close to retirement. And it's important that each of you here tonight be using different strategies. And let's transition to the third and final risk for tonight, the damaging impact of taxes, both now and in your future. And for that, I will turn it over to the one and only and best boss in the world, Mr. John Navin.
Look at that. You can tell somebody is nice. Yes, and I'm going to mention a couple things. So thank you, Joel, for sharing all that great information.
Absolutely.
As you were talking, and if you guys remember, because the slide's not up, and Bill had $156,000 left, whereas Steve was over 1.2 million. Different decades that they retired, which caused that problem. But the one thing that I want to add that Joel did, and again, thanks for sharing that, Joel,
you bet.
is that it is a plan that you can sustain. So you have to have a plan that you can sustain. So we got, again, Joel mentioned the long game. We got to have longevity. The odds are, if you're a married couple, one of you is going to live into your 90s. Okay. That's a long time. That's 35 years in retirement typically, right? So we got to be able to play the long game. And I'll guarantee you, and maybe Joel, I'll ask you, if your $1 million, it was 500,000, I guess. So, but if your $500,000 portfolio got down to $156,000, what do you think Kelsey would say to you?
I can tell you, I'm probably not going to be sleeping in the bedroom. And I don't even know if I'm going to be lucky enough to sleep on the couch.
He's going to say, you better go back and see that John Navin guy that you like so much because you need a job, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
We only get one chance to retire well, right? You can retire a bunch of times, but we only get one chance to retire well. And you want to do it smartly, right? And so make sure we take the risk out of play. And then also some of the volatility and create a plan that you can sustain. So whatever that is for you. And I will also tell you this, and Joel mentioned creating our plans. None of them are the same because all of you are different. So the plans are not the same, they're custom. So, all right, let me talk about taxes. I got about 10 minutes here, folks. Maybe a little bit less, but I'm going to talk, again, one of the things that I feel very, very strongly about is taxes. Joel had mentioned something called the danger retirement zone. When it comes to taxes, that is your opportunity zone. And what I mean by that is you have an opportunity. Well, let me back up. Prior to 60, can you touch your retirement funds? No, you get a 10% penalty. And let me be correct, it's 59.5 for some people who are wanting me to be exactly correct. It is 59.5. I will also correct myself because it's no longer a 10-year strategy. It has now moved to 12 because the rules changed last year on RMDs. It used to be 70.5 and now it's 72. So if I can use round numbers, if you'll allow me to, between 60 and 72, you've got an opportunity to where you control what your taxes are. You control them by how much you take out and where you position assets. That's why this is so important, because you are in control. After that, it's the government. Before that, it's the government. So you have an opportunity now to take control of that. So let me see if I can just share a couple of ideas with you. If I can. All right. How does saving tax on 155,000 of income lead to paying tax on over $1 million? I'm going to show you. This is a little bit hard to see. It's a good thing I've got my cheater glasses on. So this was a young lady who had started saving some money when she was 35 years old. Just like probably a lot of your folks, my folks said, Johnny, you made a little bit of money. Now, first of all, go put some money in the bank. Second of all, you got to start your IRA. I said, okay, Dad, I'll start my IRA. So my IRA, I started as soon as I got a job. I got involved in the 401k and the IRA, just like this young lady here. So she started when she was 35. She started saving $5,000 a year. So if we look, $5,000 a year, now she is 65. She has $155,000 that she saved tax on, right? So if we put money into an IRA or your 401k, your 403b, 457, SEP, SARSEP, all these different plans that are out there, it goes in pre-tax. Grows tax deferred, but what happens? If it's not a Roth, it comes out taxable. And that's exactly what happened to this young lady. Because if you look, she saved $155,000 over that time. Her account value, they were averaging 7%. So her account value at 65 was $528,000. Now let's carry our $528,000 over here to our protection and distribution. And just like Joel mentioned, the same way, we don't invest the same way. I'm just going to say it that way. When we're accumulating money on the left side, it's invested differently than when we're looking at protecting it and distributing it. So they're not going to be in the same place. So you'll see the earnings rate change because we don't want to be as aggressive. We want to hang on to our money. I don't want you to go back to work after you retire. So 528,000. Now she starts taking distributions at age 70. Okay. Pulls out $529,000 of distributions. Her account balance is still 632,000. If you take the 632 and add it to the 529, she is going to end up paying tax on a total of 1.1 million. She deferred tax on 155,000. Make sense? Yes. We got to look at ways in how we're allocating funds into what buckets they're going. So watch your taxes. With that, let me just summarize what's going to happen when we get together. Again, we'll start with a 15-minute phone call and go from there. But eventually, if it makes sense, and when I say if it makes sense, there's a couple things that I refer to. Joel and I love what we do. Okay, we're passionate about it. We're excited about it. We're happy to help people, and it's about you and it's about people. So the plan, the tools, the stuff, we have them all. We're registered investment advisors. We can get anything that you want to invest in. We can find it. We can get it for you. So it's not the product or the tool that's important. It's the plan and the relationship and the process and staying in touch and connecting. So one of the things you get when you come in or when we start to talk is we start to say, what does your plan look like? What is your risk compared to what your current portfolio is, right? So how much risk are you taking? As Joel had mentioned, we can run something called Riskalyze, and we'll tell you exactly how much risk is in your portfolio. And we'll also narrow down the number, meaning it'll Riskalyze. What it does is it attaches a number to how aggressive or how conservative you are. We can match that number with your portfolio. We can manage a portfolio totally based upon your risk. Also, we can tell you if you're too high in risk or you're taking on more than you want to be taking on. So that's something else that comes up. And then we're also going to talk about tax reduction strategies. Always. Every single year, we are going to talk about taxes and how do we reduce taxes in the future. Three most important things we need to know. And I'm going to add a fourth. Okay. So the first one is I want to know your story. You heard a piece of my story. I can tell you lots of stories, and we all have lots of them, but those aren't important. They're not as important as your story. I want to know what it is that's important to you, what it is you want. I want to hear about some of your dreams. I'm also going to ask you why it's important. Okay. And Joe will ask you the same thing. So we want to hear about you. It's not about us. We are fortunate enough to be able to work with you and your money, but it's your money, not ours. So we want to hear your story. The second thing we want to know is if we can help, right? Some of you folks, we can't help. And if I can't help you or Joel can't help you, we'll tell you and we'll point you in the right direction to where you can get help. And we'll be totally honest with that. I've been in business 28 years. I didn't get here by accident, right? It was doing the right thing over and over and over. And the right thing in my mind is take care of your people, okay? And do the right thing, show up on time, tell the truth, and take care of people. Third thing we have to look at is if you want our help. You may not want our help, right? You might not need our help. That's okay too. I hope you don't, if it's something you love. But if you're like the guy that I talked about in the beginning where he got the stock advice from the mechanic, I'm not sure maybe you love the stock market as much as you think you might. You might want to love other stuff. And that's why we have a job, is because you want to go do other stuff. Let us take care of your money. The fourth thing I'm going to add, I didn't put it up here because I didn't think it would pass compliance, but you can't be a pain in the butt. All right. Life is too short. You cannot be a pain in the butt. So that's what the 15-minute call is for. We're going to figure out if it makes sense for us to continue, if we can help you, not help you, and if we gel, right? Okay. In summary, ensure you've got enough income. So look at your income, folks. It's an income game. It's not an asset game. It's all about how much income you have. Second thing we want to talk about is protecting yourself from unnecessary risk. More and more people that I talk to, over and over, if I said to them, hey, is it more important to you to make 12% on your portfolio, or is it more important to you not to lose 12%? And I can tell you 98% of the people that we work with, it is more important not to lose money.
Mm-hmm.
Joel also mentioned, I heard him say this, again, we want to do the right thing by you. I take that one step further. And what I'll tell you is I don't ever want to apologize. I'm married. Joel is married. We apologize all day long, right? Because we're married. So we're used to it. But I don't want to come back to you. And I don't want to come back and say, Mary, thank you so much for entrusting us with all of your life savings. Oh, by the way, you have to go back to work. I won't do it. So I may be even a little bit more conservative than most people that you might see. Not to the point where you're not making money, because I wouldn't suggest we do that, because we need to make some money. But we can find your spot where you're comfortable with the risk and knowing what's happening. And then the third thing is we've got to reduce the effective taxes, right? So we got to make sure that we do not pay more than necessary in taxes. That being said, okay, here is the QR code, they call it. And simple enough, if you want to hold your phone up to that square, your phone will automatically take a picture of it, and it'll take you to our website. It'll also take you to my calendar and Joel's calendar, to where you can book your own 15-minute appointment. So if you're like me though, and you didn't bring your phone to this meeting because it's a webinar, let me give you a number. You can go to the navingroup.com. You can go and give us a call, which is 615-656-3170. Or you know what, the third thing is, I'll probably just have Joel touch base with you too. If we don't see a made appointment, I'll follow up just to make sure you don't have any questions, or Joel will follow up and answer any of those questions. So with that, again, we might be a good fit for you. We're not a good fit for everybody. We take what we do very, very seriously, but we want to have fun, and we want to also know that we're human. So those are the things that are important to us. So I appreciate you sharing part of your night with us. I know it's been a long day. It's been a long week. And I just can't thank you enough for stopping in and seeing us. And we'll look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks very much, folks. Have a great night.
Thanks, everybody. Be well.
Talk to you soon.